tonight. So I'll give you a wave if I see anybody.
Okay, thank you so much.
And so far, no, nobody.
So far, so good.
Yeah,
all right.
I see 5 o'clock and I see looks like a quorum to me. So
looks like a quorum to me.
I'm happy to start this webinar.
Hey, Christine, you want to hit the gavel?
Recording in progress.
Okay. I call the April 22nd, 2024 Bremerton Audit Committee hybrid meeting to order. The meeting is open for the public to attend in person, or you can choose to listen in and view remotely. Since action is anticipated tonight under item 3, there will be an opportunity for input from the public. As always, written comments may be sent anytime to jenny.sims@bremertonwa.gov or mailed to 3456 6th Street, Suite 100 in Bremerton, Washington. The zip is 98337. The script wants me to introduce myself. Hi, I'm the Audit Committee Chair. So welcome. Hey, welcome Vice President McDaniel. Hi. Councillor Eric Younger, Citizen Member Marwan Cameron, Deborah McDaniel is also a citizen member as well as Veep, and our leader, Auditor Jenny Sims. And Christine Grenier, thank you for coming in and staffing the empty conference room for this meeting. Okay, so under item 2, we have the March 25th, 2024 meeting minutes. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes?
Okay. That I saw.
Okay, seeing none, the meeting minutes are approved as presented. Next, under item 3, Auditor Jenny Sims will provide a final update on the landlord licensing compliance review.
Okay, did everyone have a chance to read the report, the draft?
I did.
Did anyone have questions? Sorry, I can't find my...
I had one question, and this is just because I've only read it once. In the exhaustive list that you provided, is the property class, is there a key to what that means? Like class 111, 112? Is that elsewhere in the report?
Yeah, I perhaps should have put on that schedule as well, but it's on page 5.
Oh, okay.
It's in the table there.
Yeah, you might want to put it again in that other table because they're pretty far apart from one another in the report. And I honestly wouldn't have known where to look for it. I would have had to reread the whole report to find it again. So that's my only criticism. Yeoman's work. It's an awesome report. Thank you for your hard work.
Oh, thank you.
I appreciate you.
Thanks, Deb.
You bet.
Eric, Marwan, any comments, questions?
Yeah, have any of the 1,800 of these folks previously paid their licensing fee, or are these all new folks? Like, we're just discovering them, they weren't renting before and in compliance?
They were not in the city landlord database. Whether that means they were never there, I don't know. That was kind of beyond the scope.
Will there be any penalty for not being compliant?
I am not sure.
And on section 4 on page 12, how long will they have to pay? Because it says 10 days from the time that this is executed, they'll have to get into compliance. So do they have that 10-day window, or just after 10 days? How does that work?
You know, I wish I could get back to the screen. I lost you guys. Hang on.
Marwan, you're saying page 12?
Oh, there you are.
Mm-hmm. Section 4 on page 12.
What are you looking at?
The how long do they have to pay? It's 10 days Hold on, I need to open it up too. I'm just looking at my notes here.
Yeah, it's not something that I looked at. It was, that's kind of another side of it. If you want me to research any additional things, I can do that, but it's not something I looked at. My task was to identify potentially unlicensed landlords, and then to give that to community development, and then they would decide what to do next with that data. And I really didn't dig into the rest of it.
Mhm. And I know a lot of the questions I'm asking are outside of the scope. I'm just wondering, just from your research, is there anything that you can make some assumptions on? For instance, looking at all of the Bremerton addresses that fall under the 1800 versus folks that are living in Bellevue with their mailing addresses, how many of these are commercial owners like Zillow? Did any of that stuff
So
pop up?
residential properties, right?
Yeah, there were a few commercial type names showed up, but it was very limited. I could probably give you that number if I don't know if you want me to look for it while we're on the phone now, but it was not a big number. I would estimate a dozen that just happened to come into the assessor's output.
I'm
Am
asking
I,
that question because
am I
throughout the
correct?
country we're seeing a wave of Zillow and some of these other huge companies that are snapping up all these properties, and I'm curious as to, is that starting to become a trend here in Bremerton, and is that something that we need to be concerned about in regards to trying to keep our prices affordable?
That's outside the scope of the auditor's task.
No, I know that, and I prefaced that when I asked the question.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
just-
I didn't notice that. Again, I would have, when I did this, I wasn't sure what information would become relevant, but when I went through the properties, I kind of identified the ones that were multifamily, the parcels that had a mailing address that was different from the situs address, and the ones that had a commercial sounding owner, the name sounded like a commercial owner. And I had one other field that I categorized. Anyway, I did capture that data, but I don't recall that there were very many commercial property owners. Again, I think it was about a dozen.
Gotcha. And that was my point, Anna, is, when folks are doing research and doing audits, oftentimes, new information comes up. It's like, oh, that's a pattern we didn't see before. So while I have her here, I wanted to try to inquire into
Yeah,
those things.
I did it because I thought that scoring might be relevant. Like if they had all four of those categories, they would get 4 points. And so I just wasn't sure how it would evolve. And so when I was going through the data, I thought, well, best to capture it while I'm going through, so I'm not going back through. So it ended up being less relevant.
And what is the plan going forward? These residents have been identified now. Do we connect them to Bremerton Housing Authority and try to help them come into compliance? Like, where do we go from here? Send letters?
Well, the only people that they have to be in compliance with is with the city of Bremerton. So I tried to be quite clear in the report that this is not a list of unlicensed landlords. It's a list of properties that had characteristics of a rental property that did not appear to be have the landlord registered in the city's database. So I think that the plan is that I submit a more comprehensive list to community development, and then they use their discretion on the best way to move forward. It may play out that they send a letter that says, it appears that you may have a rental property in Bremerton. Per this code, you need to have a landlord license if in fact you do have a rental property. That's kind of how I see it playing out, but that would be up to Andrea Spencer, who's a very smart person, and I'm sure she'll know the best way to handle it.
I thank you. And as Deborah said, this is a tremendous amount of work. This is fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
You all done, Marwan?
Mhm.
Okay. Eric, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I read the report, excellent report, and I totally agree with you, Jenny. This is just red flags, right, if you will, that this could be an unlicensed property that's a rental property, but it's by no means conclusive. So I agree, DCD gets it. And do we usually ask for a management response to the report of what kind of corrective actions they're going to take, or is that something new to this committee?
I have not done that in my reports.
Okay, Deborah, go ahead.
I can speak to that. In the past, like in the dark ages, when we did request such a response, we never got one. So I think we quit asking out of futility.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Christine,
So-
go ahead.
I can add that typically when that was done, as you said, back in the dark ages, we usually had I believe, a 30-day window.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think then that what we do is if we decide to issue this report and share it with the rest of the council and the mayor and Andrea, and then wait appropriate time, and then our council president, well, let's just gauge the temperature of the council. I myself, so Marwan, you asked about when would they be subject to a fine. My experience in the city of Bremerton is even if the code says you're subject to $1,000 fine or whatever, $100 or whatever, we don't start fining people until we've given them adequate notice and give them a chance to be in compliance. So the first thing is for the city, in my vision, would be for them to send out the letter, as you suggested, Jenny, and give them an opportunity to confirm or deny whether it's a rental. If they don't answer it whatsoever and the city does further investigation, it turns out they're rental, well, then you hit them with the fine because we put you on notice and you didn't do anything about it. That's on you. We put you on notice of the rules. So I think at a minimum, the letter should be generated and then have an opportunity for people to say, oh, look, I just have an extra house. I'm going to flip it. It's not being rented or whatnot. It's really unfair. We have a system of voluntary compliance by the way it is right now. This is voluntary compliance model, right? That's the IRS model on how they collect taxes. However, they have the power of doing audits and then they get you. But if you're a landlord and you know that you don't have to fill out the form and no one's ever been caught, well, then what is the point of this? And look, what about all the decent landlords that are following the rules? This is not fair to the people that play by the rules. And so I personally, as a council member, once this is publicized, if there's no response or we don't have the resources or whatnot, I'm not going to accept that. I'm just not. So that's all I have.
Deborah, please
Eric,
go ahead.
on that letter.
Yeah, I had a
Marwan. Deborah has her hand up.
Yep.
Please go ahead, Deborah.
Yeah, thank you. I had a question to both Anna and Eric then, which is to when this is presented to council, to request of the appropriate parties and make clear that I would request that council say, we need a response on this. We need to know that this is being acted on. And, I don't know, like you said, you need to know the temperature of council, but hopefully, Eric, you and Anna can carry that water for the committee and for the city.
Thank you, Deborah. Anybody else? Marwan, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I did. Just building on that letter, could that letter include resources and connection to BAJ to help them in case you are to come in compliance with the, either weatherization, just kind of on a bigger scale. It's an opportunity if they're not using it as rental property, identifying some potential uses, as Eric was saying. Say, hey, you know what? I could rent this room out, or I could rent this property out. And
I'm
then
sorry, you're cutting out, Marwan. Again, please.
on the letter, I don't know where I cut off at. Adding in there a piece of connecting folks to BHA or KCR so that they can be brought up to code if that's what's needed through weatherization services that KCR has. And then my second question was also the benefit of potentially identifying some folks that weren't renting that would now consider renting now that they have some knowledge and information on what they would need to do that and find out how easy it is. And then lastly, are there any incentives that the city can do to encourage folks to rent to help keep to increase our stock of affordable units here in the city of Bremerton?
Yeah, I definitely could see your points, Marwin, that we could do this, but really it's up to the administration. We could convey those ideas to them, but it's up to the administration whether they want to do that or not. I don't see why they wouldn't. They want to increase affordable housing, right? So I think you're on point of your ideas, but it would be a side of it. The first thing would be, are you currently a rental? Yes or no? And by the way, if you're not, I agree. We could say, hey, by the way, do you know that there's following resources in case your unit's not meeting the compliance of the Landlord Tenant Act? Here's some avenues you could check out. So I don't disagree with that approach. It could be useful. Yes.
No, I think it's a good idea, and I think that other good ideas on this topic have been presented inside and outside of this audit committee. Like there would be a registration fee for every single dwelling unit, not for every single landlord. Eric, you said that when this was begun, that the idea was it would pay for annual inspections, thus taking the burden off the renter, right? Like instead of the renter complaining about the landlord, it's just a regular inspection happens every year or 2 years. And you know, a few other ambiguities that I've noted in the actual BFCs. I like very much the idea of like saying, hey, if you need help doing this, here are some resources. But yeah, I definitely want to take the temperature of council, and I am hopeful.
Yeah, the question of increasing fees, you know, landlords are going to say simply that they're going to pass on any increased fees onto the renters, which has an undesirable effect. So you have to be careful on that one. I'm open to it. It's just what do you get for that? So if you treat it like a business, and each location is a business, if you had a city business license, if you have a storefront, if you had a 7-Eleven in one corner and another one in another corner, you'd have to have two business licenses, two locations. So I could see that. Same token, if you have 50 units in one apartment building, you don't necessarily would need to have 50 licenses. You'd have it per parcel perhaps. And maybe you would have a larger fee for a big apartment building for 50 units and a smaller fee for the little guy, if you will, that just has one parcel, one single family home and rent it out. Obviously, the system that we have needs some work. It needs a total review up and down of what we're doing and coming up with best practices. I don't think I could come up with all the answers, but I think we've discussed, and Jenny's report shows some flaws in our current system. And God, I hope we can get something out of this instead of having another one that gets filed away. And that's up to you and I, Anna. That's up to you and I.
I'm on it.
Yeah.
When you come back from Vegas.
I'll be there next council meeting, but remote. So,
okay.
You know what? You could bring it up and we could judge, do the litmus test. And then what we can do, we could put it on a study session. I think that's what we do. Another presentation to go over the report. Ask Jennifer for what we want, a half an hour to go over the report, and bring in the city attorney and talk about. She wasn't around. It was Roger and I wrote the landlord license as the Tenant Act or whatever, not the Tenant Act, but the 2013 one. It was Roger Lubavitch and I wrote that. So I
Okay.
probably refresh my memory, give some background with the council and how we got there. So.
Well, for me, I also think that finding unlicensed landlords is it's not a vindictive thing. It's that every firefighter I have spoken to, and Craig Patty, who's the head of the union, has echoed this many times, says that one of the scariest sources of fires is just old electrical wiring in old Bremerton houses. And, you know, I'd just like to make sure, and that's a really good place where KCR might be able to be of help. But I've been in a fire. I've been, I don't want that to happen to anybody. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So there's always unintended consequences, and you're going to have people that are going to push back on us and say, look, at least they have a shelter. They have a roof over their head. And
Yes.
if the landlord has to spend X amount of dollars, they may just shut this place down. I don't buy that argument at all, because they're in the business of making money. And right now they can do no improvements whatsoever, not have a license, and just collect rent. And they know that if there's anyone complaining, they can just boot them out and get someone else in there. Whereas if you have it, so there you have to be inspected. And yeah, if you have something that's was built within the last 10 years, maybe you get an exemption, right? But if you have something that's being inspected and the city's going to say, we don't have the resources, fine. We had this.
They will.
There's these models where you just pick a licensed contractor or approved inspection service, and your fee could pay for that inspection. So I don't buy that at all. Not at all.
And if you look at the specific language, it repeats and repeats, like reasonably good, reasonably safe. It doesn't say that, you have to have created an environment in which no harm can ever come to anyone in any way, which is, so I think we can come to some reasonable thing. Yeah, and I think council would be interested in that. But yeah, that's the pushback that you get. It's like, so there's black mold there, so there's, been a hole in the wall. Like some of my constituents have had a hole in a wall for like 14 months, and I'm a hole. And but it's a roof over their head. And I've heard that argument a lot, and I don't buy it either. I think treating people, giving them the conditions that we would not, like Kids Have Humane Society would intervene. I think we have a duty to intervene. Yeah. But you put it better, Eric.
Yeah, Eric, I think your idea of maybe scaling the fee based on number of properties on the site, so that the smaller landlords pay the least, and the people who have, as you said, 50 units in a building, maybe they pay more, but it's not 50 times what someone with 1 or 2 units pays. So a way to scale it that's fair and wouldn't put an undue burden on the tenants. Right.
$75 a year.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Anything else on this landlord license compliance?
Great work, Jenny. Once again, thank you.
Thank you. I'll incorporate the change that Deb had proposed regarding the property codes. Does anyone else see anything that you would like changed, added, deleted, modified?
No, I don't want you to have to ever look at that database again so long as you live.
Thank you.
Yeah, I loved your suggestions, Jenny, for improving data entry. that's a theme in your work, I've noticed.
Well, synchronizing it, making
Yeah.
it compatible.
Yeah, harmonized data is so important from an analysis standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Christine, go ahead.
I just wanted to add for council's upcoming conversations that Anna, you would be providing a report at this week's study session. So if there's
I
any
will.
of these things that you'd like to speak to, just to gauge council's interest, going forward from there, May 2nd is the next public safety committee, if the subject comes up there. And then also the next study sessions are May 8th and May 22nd. So for scheduling the conversations, we're just throwing those dates out. And then if down the road, council is very interested in looking at code revisions, that would become a potential agenda bill item and going through the city attorney's office. And we'd have to look at the timeline for how agenda bills, how those are all created and built for packets. So there is some lead time needed for conversations and development of those items.
Yes.
On that out.
The agenda bill policy does require a lot of lead time. I'm sorry, someone else was speaking. I beg pardon.
I'm done.
No.
Okay.
Okay. So let me just make sure. Can you email me those dates, please, Christine?
Yeah.
5258 522. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Landlord license compliance review, gone once, gone twice. Yeah, Eric?
If action is being taken, you were going to open it up to the public. I think the public is non-existent, but maybe need to
No,
make clear.
there is one member of the public from an acronym.
Okay, and
So
I'm confirming that that member of the public is our lobby concierge and is just listening.
it's
So we have
Ian?
a member of the public. Yes.
Okay. If there's any member of the public attending in person or remotely, or do you have any questions or comments on this item?
There are no questions or
Right.
comments from the public.
Okay. Is there consensus to move forward with issuing this report? That's the formal thing I have to say.
Yes, I approve. I don't know about the rest.
Deborah? Marwan?
Yes.
Okay, Marwan, yes. Deborah? Okay. All right. Phew. Okay, next, under item 4, we have other matters. Are there any announcements or issues to discuss? Yeah, Jenny, please go ahead.
Well, I'll just say that my plan is to move to the procurement / bid splitting project. I think the courts item is still sitting out there, but the state auditor's office is not yet complete. So anyway, that's all.
Okay. I wholly support, us, the audit committee urging Auditor Sims to move forward with the bid procurement, which is what we had planned. Any dissenters? All right. The next audit committee chair report to City Council will be at this week's study session on April 24th. Thank you again, Christine, for giving me all those dates. I really appreciate it. The next meeting is on Monday, May 27th. It's Memorial Day. So our next meeting will be on Monday, June 24th at 5 p.m. Is that working for everybody?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah.
As far as I know, I may be absent then. We're going to be on a road trip in June and we don't have our dates nailed down yet. So I'll, just stay tuned and I'll obviously notify you if I won't be here.
Okay. We will be filled with hope. We will look forward to hearing from you from a Motel 6 lobby.
Right.
We'll leave the light on for you.
There you
Okay.
go.
I'm going to do a Robert's Rules of Order thing that I've never heard anybody in council do. I'm ready to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. The meeting is adjourned. Hey, thank you all very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Have a good
you.
one, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Farewell. Thank you, Auditor Jenny Sims.
Thank you, Anna.